Okay, morning everyone. Hi, a warm welcome to the Digital Craft Festival live here in Bovey Tracy. Glad you could join us today. We are zooming live from the Devon Guild of Craftsmen, which is, if you don't know, we're a craft education charity based in a beautiful grade 2 listed watermill in the heart of Bovey. We have over 300 makers as part of our membership, and we're also a growing community. I'm Laura Wasley, the director here, and this is Flora Pearson, the exhibitions manager. And we're just very excited to be hosting the demo today with the amazing potter, owner of Foil Tiles and judge of the Great Pottery Throwdown, Rich Miller, who we've just found out was born in Devon. So big shout out. Thanks, Rich. So welcome. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, really well. Really pleased to be doing this. I haven't seen it, well, not that I'm seeing anybody other than your lovely selves now, but I haven't done any demoing or anything for a long time, so it's really lovely to to be here.
Brilliant. So our plan for this demo session today is we're going to watch Rich do his demonstration, and while he's talking through the processes and techniques, we would invite you to ask any questions you'd like, but if you can do it using the comments. So if you click at the bottom of your Zoom screen where it says chat, and if you want to add in your questions, and then we can distract Rich while he's doing his process and demo today. So off you go, Rich. What are you going to show us today?
Okay, so what I'm going to do today is sort of start the process of putting together sort of one of my crown pieces. I've been making them sort of more recently. They're much like this sort of thing. So they're made from sort of various thrown, extruded, sprigged, and sort of hand-built components. I'm going to be sort of, I've got some pre-prepared pieces which I'm going to start putting together. And, you know, hopefully we can sort of talk about some of the thought behind them, and sort of, I'll talk a bit about process and how I do things and why I do things, and yeah, take it from there. But that's essentially what we're going to be starting today. So I'll just get started.
Okay.
So I'll show you some of the things I've got down here. I feel a bit like I'm doing sort of a Blue Peter show or something. I prepared earlier. I'm just not bringing things up. So I've got this sort of section, which is sort of going to be a globe. That's just made from a two-piece press mold. And I've cast various sort of objects. My daughter's ball that she plays with, much to her dismay, and various other sort of anything round. But I just make basic sort of two-piece press molds, and you sort of make a pinch pot that you put into that, and then close it up. I'll be doing one of those a bit later on because I'll use one to sort of adorn the top. So I'll go through how to fill a two-piece mold out, and then I've also got a ring. So this, sorry, get to grips with where the camera is. So this is actually extruded. So I extrude a long sort of tube and then join it, and then sort of smooth it down. It's a bit like, funny enough, the Alabama ring jug that we threw. So it's like a hollow ring, but because I want the sort of perfection of that extruded element, I usually find sort of extruding it, joining it, and then sort of finishing it is a much easier way of getting better finish. But I'm sort of thinking with this piece that I'll have a sort of a ball which I will eventually decorate as a globe with this sort of crown that's going to be kind of teetering on the edge. So it'll only have sort of two very fine points where it will touch the sort of base, but it'll be sort of constructed from there. So that's the hope anyway. But a lot of my work, I kind of tend to build elements, make them, and then assemble them and adjust them and sort of rehash them. You know, I like to kind of give things multiple firings and build up layers and just play, just have fun. You know, it's all about experimentation, really. A lot of my work.
Great.
But with a sort of a story, a theme sort of behind it, I guess. So I've also got a toilet roll tube I'm going to make into a rocket.
Are you doing Tracy Island?
Yeah, that's it, Tracy Island today. Sorry. It's really, if nobody laughs, then actually it doesn't matter because I can't hear anybody. But yeah, so this is going to be sort of the wall section, which will go onto the ring. So I'll go through finishing and joining that. And then on here, I have So I use a sort of a clay. I make a clay structure with a profile in it. So that's just made from a big block of clay, which I use a heart, and I cut the profile out, and that sort of I use to then slump the handles over to form the shape of the profile of the handles, and they sort of stiffen off just enough. There's a sort of a bit of bend in there so that I can kind of manipulate it to assemble it, because I sort of don't really know how they're all going to go together until I kind of start assembling really. So yeah, I've got those as well, and they'll be going on.
How long have you left them to dry for, Rich? Is that
so? Because of the sort of way that I work when it comes to my own work, because I might be sort of having a busy time in a tile company, or I might be sort of doing other things, I usually get them extruded and put them on, and then I use this very fine sort of polythene. It's kind of polythene dust sheet, and it's just wonderful. Once you've sort of put that onto the surface, you can leave it for months, and you can kind of unwrap it, and it'll literally be as wet as the day that you put it on there. So it's really nice because it gives me the ability to kind of manage it. So if I'm going through a busy period and I have to cover it up, I can just wrap it, leave it, and then come back to it as and when I can, you know. And I think that's true of a lot of people, particularly makers as well. You know, there's sort of fingers in lots of pies, so it's a matter of kind of juggling and balancing. So yeah. These have been on, I extruded these at the beginning of the week, and I've just been sort of managing it. Up here, actually, I'm sort of sitting, I'm not in my actual studio, I'm in the tile workshop. So I'm on a mezzanine level in the workshop. We moved in November, so it's a new space. And I put this mezzanine in. And we've had all the kilns on, so it's like 40 odd degrees up here, sweltering. So I almost did the demo in my pants, but I thought probably not ready for that yet.
Show.
Yeah, that's a different show. Yeah, the late night version. Yeah. But yeah, so you know, but the handles and things, they'll be drying off really quickly now. So I unwrapped them a bit earlier on, and they're already feeling quite firm, you know. So it's just a matter of responding to where they're at, and either sort of spraying them down and covering them, or letting them dry off a bit. But I'll get started anyway with some of the making.
Okay.
First of all, I'm going to, so when we were chatting sort of earlier, I've been rolling these little balls because down all of the handles I use, I don't know if you can see it on this one probably better. I sort of tend to adorn them with all of these sort of, let me get that closer, with all of these balls around here, and there's sort of pearls, they're kind of almost gem-like, but I've tried so many ways of creating them, and they're the sort of thing that just, they don't mold terribly well. There's something about kind of rolling it and sort of making it that it kind of gives it a dimension that you can't get if you're pressing something into a mold. Mm-hmm. So I've been rolling those, but I weigh them out on some little scales, sort of to within 0.00 of a gram. This is where my sort of obsessive OCD side comes in.
Love it.
But yeah, so I've sort of been rolling those. So they're all like 500 grams, which is like standard for that sort of size extrusion. But yeah. So I won't go through that, but I'll talk a bit about that when I come to put them on. So first of all, I'm going to fill up this Sprig Mold, which is the little man that adorns, which adorns the top of most of my pieces. And often, to be honest, I've been asked a lot about why I use it, and it's actually this. I brought him along to meet you all today. It's actually this little character here.
Wow.
And he's a character from Mask, which was a kids' TV show in the 90s, and he's called Hondo McLean, and he is my toy from the 90s. I don't have many toys left, but he's Hondo, and he was this kind of like, I don't know, he was, I guess, the only I mean, it sort of seems terrible to say it, but he was probably the only positive, apart from my dad, positive black male role model I had in my life at the time. And he was this kind of action historian, which was quite unique, I guess. You know, he was kind of well-educated historian, and he was also sort of fighting crime alongside the rest of these other sort of people, you know, and he was a really important person, you know. I think we also have toys and things that we kind of lean towards or remember, and I just kind of Bondo was always it for me, you know, and I think just the fact that so I mean, like I mentioned, I was born in Paynton and in Devon. My dad was in the military. He was actually a musician in the Royal Marines Band. And so he was stationed at Dartmouth and we were living in Paynton. And then very quickly we moved up to Hampshire. He was stationed to a HMS Dryad in Hampshire, and we moved up there. But he was away a lot. My mum was from Wales, North Wales. She's a Welsh speaker, proud North Walian. So I didn't really see many black faces at all. So it was sort of, you know, anything on TV. So sort of him and B.A. Baracus were kind of it, really, you know, and they're my go-to for any sort of fancy dress parties, which is quite tragic. I should have had a picture ready, really, but I wasn't organised. I didn't know I was going to reveal that either. But yeah, so he's become quite an important figure, you know, because I think much of my work is really just, I think a lot of makers, you know, it's I guess it asks more questions than it kind of answers. You know, and every piece that I make is just a moment in time, a thought, or something about something I've heard or something I've learned. You know, I find history fascinating, particularly British history, British colonial history. You know, and I'm still learning, you know, a lot, because you know, my history education at school missed out a lot. So, you know, yeah, so he's kind of, he adorns a lot of the work purely because of the important role he's had in my life, and he's sort of going out. He had the bravery to sort of get out there and save the world that I felt I never had. You know, so yeah, so he's got a hero. But I made a plaster mold of him, and essentially fill him up.
We've just got a quick question, Rich. What clay are you using?
So this clay here is actually a special clay, Valentine's special clay. I use all sorts of different bodies depending on what I'm making. I use obviously my own tile body that we created with pot clays for all of the tile production, and actually for some of my pot production, so a lot of the bricks and things that are kind of much thicker. This, because I'm sort of doing some sprigging and things, I needed something a bit smoother. And this, it kind of has a bit of toasted colour when it's fired, but it's a really kind of, I either use this or the lava fleck from pot clays. So I just grab whatever's to hand out of those two, but both of them really are sort of so good for fine detail, but also they've got such strength when you're building with them. So for hand building, you can literally, like the little balls, you'll see later on when I apply them on, you just sort of plop them on and they just stay stuck. You know, it's incredibly robust, even though it's very smooth. It's just a sort of a good blend of different ball glaze. Most glazes fit it, it's got broad firing range, just a good all-rounder. So to fill this sprig, I literally just pop the lump of clay down, and I work from the middle up.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, no, Valentine.
It's raining here, so I apologise if it sounds like I'm working outside.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's sunny in Devon. The sun is shining. Sorry.
Never moved away.
Yeah, see, that's what happened when you move away from Devon.
Thinking rainy old Surrey.
Yeah. So I want to know, when did it all start then? When did you fall in love with clay, Rich?
So it's a weird one. I don't, you know, I sort of, it's one of those things I look back on and I think, when did it happen? When did it happen? You know, I mean, when I was young, as I say, my dad was away a lot. So very often I was my mum's +1 for things. And my mum she sort of, being that she sort of grew up in a very rural position in North Wales, she made everything from her clothes, she knitted. They had like a small holding made of cloth in a little hamlet on the peninsula. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, a little bit. You might have to shout a little bit more.
Yes. Okay, I'll shout a little bit more. Yeah, so she was on the peninsula, sort of merrily making stuff. Yeah, when she sort of came down to West Sussex, that kind of continued. And she took up sugar craft for a while. And I basically went along with her because there was nowhere else for me to go. So I used to sort of make sugar paste flowers and just sit there kind of embossing things into the icing and just working with the material. It's very much like clay. So I wonder whether that's where it sort of started.
Yeah.
But then I was always interested in art. I had a really, at school I had a bit of a tough time, if I'm honest. Although, not for the want of trying, because I loved school. I love learning. But the art department at school kind of provided, I hate to say it, it was like a safe space. I could kind of make and just be myself and do what I wanted to do. And I had a very good art teacher at school, Nick Williams, who was very encouraging. And then I went on to college to do an art course. And there was a potter there called Martin Snelling, who was a production potter. And I think the first time I saw him make on the wheel, I was just blown away. I was mesmerised, And part of me thought, oh, this might be quite good. It might be quite impressive, a lovely skill to learn. I don't think I was considering a career in it or anything. And I just started working with clay, and I just loved it. So I went on to do a degree at the Surrey Institute in Farnham. But I count myself really lucky because so many colleges and schools have got rid of facilities for clay. And had I not had that opportunity to try it, I just don't think it would have even been on my radar. So I just think that kind of grassroots, having the opportunity to experiment with clay early on, is so essential to kind of the longevity of the field, really. And I mean, I think that's where the show is good, because it beams the joy of ceramics and clay as a material straight into into people's homes, and hopefully gives them the opportunity to then explore it further.
Yeah.
But I think it was really college where the seed was planted for me. So I'm just going to score this very quickly. I don't know whether you can kind of see that. But I just score both pieces. This is just a really simple 2-piece dropout mold.
We've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got someone saying that their dad, was your dad called Charlie, Rich?
Was.
So we've got someone whose dad was in the Royal Marines band with your dad.
No way. No way.
So that's Sally Marshall. Sally Marshall's dad was in a band with Charlie.
Wow. That's quite cool. So I mean, the one thing that the sort of Royal Marines band, it's much like ceramics, I guess. It's a really small world and a small community. And I mean, when he passed away, I got in touch with the society, and they had a full sort of record of everywhere he'd been, of his whole career, and sort of contacts that would have been in with him. And I was able to kind of get in touch with people who he sort of had lost touch with, and it's a really, it's surprising. I mean, my dad was sort of. He came over in the early 60s, and he moved to Darlington, and within a couple of years of him being in Darlington, his dad had sort of passed away, my granddad, of cancer, and so he, being the eldest boy in the household, then had to sort of become the breadwinner. So at 15, he had to sort of go out to work, and because he was passionate about music, that was something that he really loved. I think the Royal Marines offered an opportunity for him to continue learning music, but still kind of earn money and have a career. And he ended up being in for sort of nearly 30 years and traveling all over the world. And it was quite interesting, as a child, to be on the periphery of that, because he was playing at a lot of royal engagements. And I mean, it's where really a lot of the forms and the things that I sort of make begin, I guess. Because it's that respect for royalty and Britishness and sort of all of that protocol that was drummed into him from the age of 15 was so much a part of our household. So it's sort of a lot of it sort of starts there, really. But that's incredible. Wow, what the joys of technology. I can't see you, but you can see me. So hello, that's really cool. Yeah, you should get in touch. Love to sort of know more about what you do. So basically,
great.
squeeze that together, and that's going to stay to one side. I realise I'm wittering rather than doing. So
No.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
And I'm also quick. I did say to Rich this week that we're going to do plugs throughout. So there's Richard's web address and Instagram and lots of information. So please follow. And
so because it's going to start at the base, I'm going to get that onto the board. Most of the things that I make, I just use a bat, and I've just drawn all of I've just sort of lined it out essentially. So it's really, really good if you're doing any form of hand building or constructing or anything like that, because you can literally line things up and center them. I mean, being that I sort of do a bit of throwing, I'm quite used to sort of tap centering. So, but you know, if you're not, you can use those things to line it all up. And then I'm going to take, so this was the throne section. It's sort of got a thin, it's quite a thin wall, but I'm just going to trim this out. And I do it all just by hand. So that's just where I threw it, because I threw this essentially as a sort of a single wall with no base. And then I'll just trim this out before attaching it. So there's sort of no excess clay.
So we did have a question earlier, Rich, about why you have chosen the crown to do. I think you answered that when you were talking about your upbringing.
Yes. I mean, it's really weird. I think for a lot of years, I felt quite ashamed about my upbringing in many ways, because I think, you know, as I say, I didn't see many black faces around. I was like, I guess I was a sort of typical military kid, you know. And my dad, you know, my dad's proudest moment was, you know, meeting Princess Anne. So we had pictures of the royals around, and you know, and I didn't really know much about the sort of history or the sort of I don't know, British history, I guess. And I felt sort of like, yeah, I felt like I didn't fit in anywhere, because I certainly didn't feel part of the black community. I was sort of made to feel quite isolated from my local community. Yeah, so, you know, I sort of, my home and all of the influences there were sort of the main things in my life. Yeah, so I'm going to attach this anyway. But yeah, it's the crown, you know, from the sort of the military hat pins to yeah, the sort of a lot of the colonial research I do, it's the one unifying factor. And I think it's more, you know, the crowns that I make are completely fictitious. They're sort of not based on anything in particular. They're sort of, they might hold a thought, as I say, or they might hold something that I've sort of learned about, but they're not necessarily based on exact objects.
so what are you doing now, Rich? We can see you.
Just scoring
Yeah.
the mark that I've made to apply the wall of the crown. So that's just going to apply it to the base. And I just do a sort of a cross hatch. I realise this is really floating me, so I do apologise.
No. I'm going to ask. I would like to know, how do you manage all these projects that you've got at the moment? So I've been doing a bit of research about you in the last week, because I knew I was speaking to you today. And you've got your own work, you've got the tile company, you know, you've been on Throwdown. There's a lot going on. How do you manage your kind of day to day?
With great difficulty, you know. like most people, I think, you know, when you have lots of different things going on, you just kind of make it work. But yeah, I mean, I would say that it's become more and more difficult as things have got more busy. But yeah, I'm unfortunately one of the people that has a yes to all type button that's permanently switched on. Yeah. So I could take more and more on, but you know, I've got a really good team at the workshop, Zia Kadri and Eric Spencer, who kind of help produce all of the tiles. So you know, and that's kind of very manageable sort of production, and it's sort of, I guess there's a discipline to that. We sort of make the work in a very specific way, so that's quite manageable. And I guess we're doing a lot of sort of experimental work there as well, trying to kind of always create new things and just explore new ideas. Then my own work is always evenings. So I get my daughter into bed at 8 o'clock, and then I disappear up to the studio, which is probably why myself and my wife have managed a 20-year-long relationship. Safely out of the way. And so, yeah, so that's very much my evenings, and it's my sort of wind down, you know, because I mean, a lot of these processes, as I say, they're quite slow, progressive processes, and you know, it's sort of it's my wind down. It's my kind of real. I mean, I joked earlier, it's therapy. I mean, it probably is. You know, I think it's. I just get lost in the sort of monotony of just material. I just love it. But yeah, so, and then, you know, things like the Throwdown, that's like 3 months of kind of real madness, just being away and backwards and forwards, and but again, really joyous, because you're just part of this incredible process. You're watching these make these incredible things in a week, and yeah, so that sort of comes and goes, and then depending on whether I'm still involved with the interview process, the auditioning process, I might be sort of on and off Zoom, or I might be going for odd days here and there. We've got the Art in Clay festival that happens in November. That was cancelled last year, but that kind of is usually busy around sort of the new year, because we're doing the selection for the makers. And it sort of quietens down a bit until the summer, and then it picks up again. So there's sort of a rhythm that's developed, and I just kind of go with it, really. But yeah, it's not always easy to keep up. It's not always easy, but you know, they're all things that I love doing, so it never feels, you know, I think, you know, as a child, you get up, and sometimes you get up and you go, oh, I don't want to go to school today, or I feel, yeah, I just want to stay in bed. Actually, I never feel like that. You know, I always something interesting going on, or you know, you'll be doing a demo, or there's, you know, there's always something. So so that's that attached. And then what I usually do with these is I sort of stamp them out. It's getting a little bit dry, but we'll give it a go.
Yep.
It's not enjoying the tropical heat of the mezzanine.
Question, what slip are you using?
So I always just use a mix of the body that I'm using. So I just blend it down. And usually, because I've thrown on the wheel all of these components, there's slops in the water. And I always just use a slip trailer, and I just pick up some of the slops from the bottom of the throwing water, and I use that to join. And the nice thing about having it in the trailer is it's kind of really accurate. You can just put it where you want it. It just, I mean, often it takes hours if you're using a brush to kind of get it out of the thing and brush it on down and then mix it back up. But that, particularly when I'm putting the balls on and things, it's just so accurate. I've got one with a pin as well, like a very fine end, and that's very good for very accurate work.
We had a really an interesting comment from one of the viewers about making the balls, because you talked about it being tricky to make the balls. He suggested, I think it's called Martin, and he suggested using an old-fashioned pill making machine from a pharmacy.
Yes.
He said, yes, if you get a hold of one of those, that would be a really useful tool for that.
Yes, they are incredible things. I haven't got one, but I have seen them. Somebody suggested that to me previously, and yeah, I've not got hold of one, but they are pretty cool.
You put your wish out there now, yeah, to all these people. Someone will find you one.
Just say when your birthday is.
But the thing is, you know, I think the thing I like about rolling them in my fingers, I mean, the thing that was tricky with the balls was always getting that kind of three-dimensional quality to them. Because when you roll a ball in your fingers, you just get a beautiful round kind of, so that's just been embossed with this stamp, and that was cut out of smoke. So I make a lot of different stamps. But yeah, with the balls, when it's sort of a round ball, it has a completely different feel, and the glaze works over it in a very different way to if it was like a semi-sphere, you know what I mean, which you would need in order to kind of put it into a mold. I mean, the pill molds are obviously two-part and they come together, so you can kind of create that sort of ball again, but you'd still have to finish it because they did create a seam line. But these are just, yeah, there's something nice about it. Just something nice about it. It's one of those processes that's sort of rolling them. And as I say, because I use the digital scales, for certain areas I use different sizes. So for sort of up around the arms, I might use like 500 grams, and I might do things that sort of tail off. So I don't know if it's got sort of kind of, this is still on its place actually. It's gone through the film, but I do things like sort of tail it off. So you can kind of, I don't know whether that you can see that, but you can change, like on the handle there, it goes very large down to very small. So you can kind of create sort of a slightly different energy to the piece.
Yeah.
It's kind of a tankard that's in process.
There he is.
Yeah, there he is. He's in a little niche that's going to be, it's going to have a gold, it's going to have a gold back in the back of
Love
that.
it.
So it's kind of, yeah, I've been looking at
Amazing in clay.
Yeah.
Sorry?
He looks amazing in clay. It's such a good mold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's sort of,
It's really quiet, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, it's funny because that sort of, that permanence is so lovely with ceramics. And there's something like every time I press one, I feel like I'm sort of immortalizing him.
Yeah, he's cloning him. Cloning him.
Yeah, indeed. But
Yeah.
he's bending to my will because I always change it and, you know,
Yeah.
put it in different places and things like that. But yeah, it's kind of, yeah, a little icon, I guess. But I think that the thing was, when my dad passed away a few years back, my mum, we'd sort of cleared all of his house out and everything else. My mum came out with this little drinking glass, and she said, "Oh, do you want this?" It was your dad's, and I was like, "I've never seen that glass in my life." Just point this story, I promise. But the essentially, it was this little drinking glass that had belonged to his dad, my granddad, who I never met, and he carried it with him all over the world. And always kind of raised a glass on the sort of anniversary of his death, sort of thing. But it was sort of probably the only object that I know that he sort of put away for prosperity.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that was the moment where I thought, actually, you know, all of these things that I'm making have this permanence. They're all being sent out. They become part of the story, whether it's mine or somebody else's, or my story being, you know, projected out into the world. And you know, the importance of these objects and what they say and what they do and what they are is sort of critical, because, you know, long after I'm gone or we're all gone, you know, these things are still going to be around, and what will they say about us and what we were thinking at the time. So yeah, I sort of spend long evenings listening to Radio 4 and making things in response to it, I guess. But, you know, I think, yeah, he is that thing for me. He's the thing that I've kind of, a really positive object, you know, that sort of, yeah, I would love to sort of that I would love to have that permanence, because it says something about, you know, my experience of living on this planet for the fleeting moment that it will be in the history of the planet, you know. But yeah, anyways, I've probably digressed. That's what I do.
No. We have got a few more we'll do some quick questions while you're still.
Yeah, please, fire away.
Yeah.
Fire away.
Okay, so what have you made that you're most proud of?
Crikey, most proud of. Goodness, I'm really proud of the work that I'm making of my own work, because it always inevitably feels like I'm on to the next thing already. So I'd say the project that I've been most proud of was working with the Kate Malone and Stephen Pay of EPR Architects for Savile Row for the cladding, external cladding of the building. I mean, that was just, I sort of look back, I think about it a lot, and that was just one of those projects of a lifetime, you know, if ever there was one, because I think it was just a coming together of, you know, firstly, sort of Kate and Stephen are really dear friends now, which I think says a lot, because we worked together for, you know, well over 2 years. So we remained friends, which is always good. But I think it's just the kind of the scale of the project, the ambition of Stephen's. I don't think sort of there's many people that are brave enough to kind of engage. I mean, you know, so essentially it was the external cladding of a new 6-story building in Savile Row, with sort of 11,000 crystal glazed tiles. And, you know, I don't think many sort of designers, architects are brave enough to kind of integrate that kind of process on that kind of scale in on such a prominent project. And just working with Stephen and Kate. I mean, Kate is an incredible person, incredible maker. Just her openness, her warmth, dedication to the material. It was just a real eye opener. And it was just a wonderful project. And it's one of those things that, you know, I feel like I could take my daughter to and say, look, you know, we did this, we helped make this happen, you know. And similarly, actually, the Tate Gallery at St Ives, the pavilion there with Jamie Fobert, you know, just big sort of, they feel like prominent public artworks, but you know, just the memory of what went into creating them, and the people I had the opportunity to work with was what made them so special. But you know, there's been all sorts of things that I've been really proud of. A while back, a couple of years ago at Ceramic Art London, Judy Ruggio, who is curator at the British Museum, bought a pot and donated it to the collection at the British Museum, and that I felt really proud of. Again, it's somewhere I've been to learn about history and objects that have shaped our society over thousands of years, and I just you know, to have an object that's part of that collection was sort of really humbling and really exciting. So I was super proud about that. You know, and it was the first time I'd really taken work out that sort of meant something to me. So, you know, for that to be recognised was really wonderful. So yeah, I would say those are probably the things I'm most proud of.
Yeah, but that's quite emotional, isn't it? Kind of like what you said. It's a place of inspiration, and now your own piece is there for other, you know, for people to be inspired by. That's
crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah, amazing.
Mind blowing, you know. So yeah, I would say those two things would be it for me.
Okay. We've got another one. This one, yeah.
Yeah.
So as you're busy now, what's your favourite tool that you use?
Oh, I've got several favourite tools. I don't know what I've brought with me. So let me go through. I'll go through a few of them. I mean, they're things that I use all of the time, and they're not kind of, some of them, I mean, I've not found since. But, okay, so let's see. So this I use all the time, and it's a personal favourite. It's just a wooden tool, but it's sort of been fettled to a fine, smooth point over time, and it's just beautiful for smoothing things down. I use this an awful lot for scratching, slipping, cutting, joining. That's a personal favourite. I haven't got any of my found tools here. And when I say found, I don't mean stolen. I mean things I found in sort of, you know,
acquired
over the years. Yeah. And this one, I've not found one like this, but this I absolutely love, and I use for all sorts of fettling and cleaning. I don't know whether you can see these.
Yeah, great.
But yeah, you know, you sort of become really familiar with certain tools for certain things. I use these an awful lot. These are the Xcm Loop Tools. They're very, sorry, I'm getting, they're very fine loop tools. Yeah. And they come in all sorts of shapes and profiles, and those I use all the time. So I'm just going to stick this other arm on whilst we're chatting. Just so we can start getting some shape together. Really.
Yeah, sorry, Rich, I keep distracting you.
No, not at all.
I've got another question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. How is your practice influenced by the importance of sustainability and the climate?
Well, now there's a big question. There is a big question.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say massively. You know, it's something that I've sort of more recently become more in tune to, more concerned about, I guess, because certainly the tile company, you know, we use a lot of electricity. I mean, over the years, we've sort of switched from using predominantly gas to using more electric, purely because I feel like actually longer term, there's a way for us to kind of move away from fossil fuels with the electric, you know, by exploring renewables. But yeah, I mean, it's something I'm really concerned about. I mean, the mining and excavating of raw materials and refining of raw materials, you know, is a very energy hungry industry. And I don't think there's any way of sort of scaling up production without kind of having a negative effect on that. So it's certainly something longer term we're looking at. We've been working recently with a PhD student at Bartlett, Shanil Malik, who has been creating these incredible sort of biogels that get, we've been making the base tiles, and this biogel kind of gets smeared into this base tile, and it's designed to be used as a building cladding. And as rainwater runs down this cladding, this biogel removes all of the metallic compounds from the water. So by the time it kind of gets to the bottom, it's essentially sort of drinking quality water. So I don't know, I think longer term, I'm certainly going to be looking at ways we can kind of ensure that the skills we've got here have longevity, because I think so many of these small cottage producers, you know, they've either been priced out of the market or they've just disappeared as the people running them have sort of retired. And I just want to sort of create something that has where there's a sense that it's kind of, I guess, adding to society rather than just using kind of resources or raw materials and sort of running, you know, profiting and running. It would be nice to think that actually there's a future, there's sort of longevity there. So yeah, we've been working with her, and as part of that, we've been investigating kind of various additives to raw clay bodies that we can use to kind of gradually reduce the firing temperature. Because obviously with the tiles, the kind of we're doing stoneware, which is quite high temperature. It uses a lot of additional energy. So if we can kind of start to bring those temperatures down, but still have the same sort of qualities to the end product, we'd be onto a winner, you know. So yeah, you know, and I think it's partly having a child has kind of affected that, because you know, you sort of think, goodness, what am I going to be leaving her, or what am I going to be leaving them, you know, and if she sort of turns around and says to me, what did you do, Dad, you know, when the world was burning, if she ever says that, I'd like to be able to say, well, you know, I've tried to do something.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So that's kind of where I'm at, I guess, with it. You know, I'd say it's definitely at the forefront of my thinking, but, you know, whilst we kind of slowly move towards working in a more ethical way, you know, we're still trying to earn a living, which can be difficult.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think, you know, as we get more of a choice, you know, to sort of do more, we certainly will be. You know, and we're looking at sort of, you know, when we renew our electricity contract, we'll probably go for an electricity that's, you know, produced in a renewable fashion, and just do, you know, small steps, as many small steps as we can to try and encourage a positive change.
Yeah, right. What advice have you got for a new potter, and how would you advise them on broadening their networks?
I would say craft shows, you know, are always good. Either sort of apply and try and get into one. If you can't do that, if you don't get in, visit them, visit and talk to the people. I say that when you can. I mean, it's been such unusual circumstances. But I think, you know, I think what we all are craving is that kind of social interaction. I would say in terms of sort of digital networks, things like this are great, and sort of, I mean, I don't know much about what's going on digitally, if I'm honest, because I've sort of got my head down making stuff out of mud most of the time. But I would say when the opportunity allows, just get out and visit as many people, talk to as many people as possible, because that kind of that human interaction, that talking and networking is so vital. I mean, certainly it's how I found things have grown from sort of nothing, you know, into something, into work. And it's yeah, it's just a lovely community of people. Ceramics potters, you know, are generally lovely people. And you know, we work in isolation a lot, so any opportunity to come out and talk and interact is so valuable. And I would say, you know, the people that I've met in the ceramics industry have been, you know, the nicest people I've met, you know, and it's been such a welcoming community, and it's a small community. And I think anybody who's sort of working in clay or wants to be part of that community, you know, will be welcomed with open arms. You know, we all understand how difficult and challenging it is to work in ceramics, and I think, you know, anything that anybody can do to help, you know, help is usually forthcoming if you need it. So yeah, just get in touch with anybody, everybody, you know, yeah, as much as possible. But I would say as soon as shows are open, apply for them, try and get your work into it if you can, because then you can speak to other stall holders, people running the events, and the public, and you'll find that things will pick up very rapidly. I mean, the digital age has completely changed things, and how you kind of generate interest on social media platforms, things like that. I really am very badly placed to advise on, because I'm sort of, you know, I'm a bit of a Luddite when it comes to all of that. But yeah, I would say, you know, just speak with as many people as you possibly can.
Definitely. Brilliant. That's good advice. Thanks, Rich.
One of our viewers also gave some advice on that question. He said, Martin again. Martin said, join your local Potters Association and use that as a way to share ideas and experiences.
Great.
We've got, at the moment, we've got an exhibition which is showing work by the West Country Potters Association, which is a really strong membership organisation for people who are potters and also people who are interested in potting, not necessarily making, and everything in between.
Okay.
That's a really good way of networking.
And, and just a very quick plug, we're opening on the 14th of April. So that's our plug for today, sorry.
I just can't wait until everything is starting up again. It's just, it's so nice to get out there and just see people, see what they've been making. I just think there's probably been so much interesting work going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly for people that have had the opportunity to keep making.
Yeah, definitely. I've got any questions? I've got any questions. What motivates you to make?
Oh, yes.
Okay, what motivates you, Rich? What motivates you to make?
As I say, I think for the most part, it really is therapy. I just find that kind of absorbing nature of the material just so, that's not going to come together. Just sort of, it's the catharsis of sitting of an evening. I'm just going to take that off. Sitting of an evening making and just getting lost in my own little world, you know. I just find that so valuable as a part of my life. And I just feel like it's a way of exploring ideas. I haven't found a material yet that allows the possibilities that clay does. You know, it's just the possibilities are infinite. You can kind of make absolutely anything. And I just find that it's the way I love to explore the world. It's I find it incredibly satisfying when I make something that people use. You know, I love that process. I just sort of I think it's difficult to describe it, really. You know, it's just so much a part of my life, my everyday. It's something that I'm sort of lost without, I guess. So yeah, my main motivation, I guess, is the material and my desire to kind of work in it, and my sort of just the endless possibilities it provides to sort of explore ideas.
How did you get into the throwdown, Rich? You have to get.
Oh, that's quite a story. I'm just going to take these off. Sorry. That's quite a story. Well, it's not quite a story. It's just a story. But essentially, when they sort of had the first series, they were thinking they were going to have sort of regular judges and then guest judges. And a lovely lady, Karen Richardson, who was sort of responsible for sort of finding cast and various people who were going to participate. And she came down because they were thinking about having a tile challenge, and a few people said, oh, if you're going to have a tile challenge, speak to Rich. And she came down and screen tested me, and then they sort of changed the format. They found Kate, they found Keith, and they decided against it. But they were kind of like, oh, we've realised, you know, we're really going to need someone who can kind of look after the contestants' work in their absence. And I don't know whether it was because I generally am a little bit of a cowboy, or you know, that I'm used to sort of pushing process, because I think with the tile production, certainly, you know, there's always deadlines. It's always kind of very tight. You know, we're always pushing the process to its very limits, and the Throwdown kind of required that, because, you know, it was fitting ceramics process into a format that, you know, had very specific time goals, you know. So yeah, I think it was one of those things. I kind of fell into it. They said, you know, we need someone, are you up for it? And as I say, my yes button was firmly planted down. So I kind of got involved, and the rest is history, should we say. In the first year, I was sort of mainly just looking after the contestants' work, and I was sort of, Kevin Millward was doing a lot of the challenges and doing a lot of sort of technical aspect. And then sort of second series round, I got a bit more involved with some of the challenges, and then got involved with the auditions, sort of in terms of judging the technical stuff that was going on. And then I sort of, got asked if I wanted to be a judge, which sort of completely, you know, out of the blue and unexpected. So yeah, it's kind of grown, and it came from nowhere, and it was definitely not something I'd considered as a potter, thinking I would, you know, ever be sort of in front of the camera. Really, it was kind of never even on the list, let alone sort of high up the list of priorities. I was just sort of, it was always about the clay, and it still is. You know, I think that's the thing with the show. You sort of, when you're immersed in it and when you're working on it, it's just all about the clay and the materials and the potters and what they're doing. And like, I mean, this year it was just it was lovely not having the responsibility of loading kilns, and Rose did an absolutely incredible job, because I know all too well the pressures of being in that role and having that duty of care. You just feel this overwhelming sense of responsibility, because you don't want to be responsible for somebody losing their place because of what you do in the kilns. But at the same time, you're sort of pushing the process. You're I say pushing, you're kind of, they're educated pushes, you know what I mean? But clay, you know, clay has an honesty. There's nothing you can do to kind of fabricate the process. It is what it is, and the clay will respond to what you impart on it, whether it's the kind of the way you build with it, or the way you fire it, or the way you dry it. So it's sort of, it's one of those things. It was it's been incredibly challenging, but it was just wonderful to be a part of, really. I've sort of wandered away from the question, sorry.
Amazing.
Yeah, you could really tell that it was a very kind of successful series.
Yeah.
Lots of it. It was very sort of immersive, wasn't it, for you, being part of it during lockdown?
Definitely.
Lived together and all that.
Yeah, I mean, this year the potters were just so incredibly talented, warm, kind of open to anything, and they just kind of made our job, myself and Keith's job, incredibly difficult. You know, it's I had sleepless nights still, but it was because I was worrying about making sure that I was, you know, being fair to everybody. You sort of have to. It's difficult because you sort of, there are things you would have a tendency to lean towards in terms of the things that you like or dislike, and you have to sort of remove that subjectivity. I mean, it's great to kind of tell them what you like and things, and give them sort of constructive feedback to try and help them sort of you know, grow as makers. But you sort of feel this sense that you have to kind of look at it in a very objective way to make sure that you're being fair to everybody, regardless of how they approach what they're making. But you know, it was lovely to have the opportunity as a judge to sit and just observe that, the whole process, rather than thinking, oh my God, I've got to get the kiln on in 10 minutes, right, run that down there, run that up there. So it was a really different experience, but yeah, and different pressures, but it was lovely. It was just lovely to be a part of. I mean, it's yeah, I think sort of certainly in the first series, it was quite interesting because I had there was very mixed comments, about the show. I think, you had people sort of in the industry who perhaps felt it might sort of undermine what they do, but I think, on the whole, it's had completely the opposite effect. I think it's really added in, it's built interest, and it's brought an audience that perhaps wasn't there before. Some of whom have decided to kind of become makers and kind of work in the material, which is fantastic. Because as I say, when we were talking earlier, mentioning about the sort of that grassroots that we're sort of really missing out on because schools have closed their departments. I think unless we have a way of getting it out to people and kind of encouraging them to become enthused about it, we're gonna lose our audience. We're going to lose people that are kind of going to become makers. But yeah, I sort of in the first series, I got quite worried about it because I've been working for sort of nearly 20 years in the industry, trying to sort of build a career, build a reputation, and I was sort of worried that it might almost be sort of slapstick or have have a very negative impact on the industry that I love. But Love Productions and Sarah Thompson Woolley particularly, who's sort of the chief exec on the Throwdown, are just incredible, and they're not out to make anybody look bad. They want to, they want it to be a joyous thing. And I think, above all else, that's sort of what I'm most pleased about, if you like, that it is that, it's all of those things. And I've never been worried about it since. You still get some purists who sort of, perhaps take issue with it, but that format isn't for everybody, and it is a particular format. But I just think the positive effect it's had on the industry far outweigh any negative thoughts people might have about it. But yeah,
we definitely see that here in our organisation, that that there has been a great resurgence of all kinds of craft, and I think, things like the Throwdown are definitely have played a really good big part in that. It's a bit unfair to call it reality TV, doesn't it? Because that's a derogatory term, and actually it's really teaching amazing skills and showcasing amazing skills.
Yeah, but on the same token, the reality element is what makes it so special, because the realities of working with clay are kind of laid bare for everybody to see, it's just been fascinating. And actually, I think having been behind the scenes and watching the potters, and I feel like I have sort of worked my way up from sweeping the floor to being allowed to be on the in front of the camera sort of thing. So it's been really lovely to kind of get inside the whole process and understand the sort of motivations of the TV company and what they're trying to do, and what and what we as makers like do and have to do to kind of make the process work. But yeah, it's been fascinating. I feel really grateful to have had the opportunity, to do it. And so I just took this apart because it wasn't really going well.
Okay.
They're distracting you.
We're distracting you, and also we're not going to close this session, but I've just looked at the clock, Rich, and we were on from 12:30 to 1:30, and it's now 1:30. So yeah, I know. Where did that hour go? But we're just gonna keep going. Keep chatting. I'm not going to close it. So we might lose a few people because they might be booked on to other demos and things.
Okay. Yeah. No worries.
So we'll say goodbye to those people, and a huge thank you for joining us today. But yeah, we're just going to keep hanging out here with Rich until he's finished his crown. So put the cap on, people.
How many weeks do you have?
Yeah, I know. I need to get home for about 6, Rich.
Right. Week 3. Rich is still assembling the top part of the crown. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll see if I can get this little man out, my little Hondo. But essentially, I mean, this is sort of the basic structure, and it looks very plain because there's obviously no adornments. But what I will ultimately do, so that's just stuck together, and they're sort of self-supporting enough that they're holding themselves up. I'm just going to get this little man out, if I can get him. God, I can't believe that time has gone so quickly.
I know.
So yeah, so that's how he comes out, and then
Amazing.
Yes.
and he's got this way.
Yeah, lucky
And then,
him.
and then I just go about sort of fettling it down, but that really would be slow TV. So I'll leave him to one side for a minute. So what I would do usually is I would, as I say, I'd assemble all of this together, and then I'd go about sort of cleaning it up, fettling it. I've got various sort of pieces that little sprig molds that I've made. That's a fleur-de-lis, which I kind of made in clay, and then I cast in plaster and then press clay into them to sort of make some of the adornments. The fleur-de-lis is something that I've sort of found fascinating. That, you know, the sort of the origins of it, and then the subsequent uses of it, and the fact that it's sort of, I guess it epitomizes my main interest in kind of migration, really. The fact that sort of you have sort of an influx of people, and they kind of become ingrained as part of society, and all of those cultural influences just kind of permeate out until sort of culture is this sort of one melee. And, you know, it's kind of, it's imagery, things like that, that just become so much a part of, you know, like the cross pass, you know, the sort of the, you know, which is sort of a religious symbol, but actually, you know, it's something that kind of crosses, has been used and reused, the swastika, all sorts of things like that, kind of images and symbols that kind of get reused and regurgitated in different ways. So I usually adorn the pieces with various kind of motifs and different things, but that are kind of just, I guess, based around that sort of melting pot of inspiration that culture is, you know. So yeah, I'll just very quickly, because I've rolled some balls, I'll go through the process of sticking a few on quickly. So I usually score a line down. Can't see what I'm doing. And then I literally so literally, once they've started to sort of harden off, I give them a final roll just to compress them. And I go about sort of adding those on. But literally, I'll just spend hours and hours in my studio weighing small lumps of clay and then sticking them on.
It does sound quite fun. Sounds quite therapeutic, as you said.
Perhaps for some, myself included.
Yeah.
For others, it's possibly fairly mindless, which is what I like about it.
You get your
Because, you know, as I was saying about all of the things I've got going on, that generally make me very busy day to day, it's just that kind of escape. And so you can kind of see how that will start to transform something that looks sort of almost quite naked. But that would sort of continue down, and then I would perhaps produce something. The fleur-de-lis perhaps would go in.
There was a question.
Yeah, were there any more questions before?
Yeah, we're just.
So someone asked about the crowns. We also had a question about failure. How do you approach or feel about failure, and or when things don't go according to plan, like when things go wrong in the kiln, for example?
Oh no.
On the program, or just in general life? Or...
I think in general life, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's inevitable. I think if you plan on becoming a maker, you just have to accept that things will go wrong, you know, and that's the reality of working with this material. And you know, I'd lie if I said that I didn't mind it happening. You know, it's inevitable, and you just learn to live with it, and you have to be tenacious. You have to carry on and just sort of. But you know, that's the beauty of it, because you sort of, I mean, you can think that you've got something completely nailed, and then all of a sudden something changes and it's going wrong all of a sudden, and then you have to go about figuring out why it's gone wrong, you know, and that's part of the beauty of it, because you are working with a material that has a mind of its own, you know, and you have to work with it. So I mean, it's always momentarily disheartening, I would say, and then you get over it, you try and analyze what's happened, and you try and work that problem out. I mean, we have it all the time. I mean, that's the one thing, you know, with the tile works, having it for sort of 16 years, we've had some catastrophic failures, catastrophic issues that have happened, and you build a resilience to it. You know, it's part of the game. And you know, there's probably every week we're saying, why on earth do we use clay? Why don't we just use wood? Or, well, wood is equally as problematic. Why don't we just use something that stays put? You know, but we you know, you put all of that work into the back end of it, and then you put it in a kiln. It's like the final piece of the jigsaw, and then it just unravels everything that you've done. And it's but you know, I very often find that sort of, certainly with my own work, when I'm making that, you know, I have an expectation in my mind of how I want it to look, and then I open the kiln. If it's not that, then it takes time to sort of almost come to terms with what's happened. And very often, some of those things are actually the things I love most longer term. But there's just this process of kind of readjusting your own ideas or your ideals or your own sort of thoughts on how it should look. But yeah, I think most of the time it's about expectation. Obviously, you know, with the tiles, there's a huge element of having to pay the bills. And if we've just destroyed several thousand tiles, it has a financial impact as well as an emotional impact. But you just there's no choice but to just get on with it. Do you know what I mean? It's and I think it does you build a resilience to it. But you know, it's always that kind of that first thing is always sort of, you open the kiln, and if it's something's happened, you think, you know, what's gone on there? What's happened? You know, it's because there's always an opportunity to learn from it. You know, it's so I'm just going to take this out. A lot of people would kind of put, sorry, I'm working out of the camera. A lot of people would put sort of clay in the sprigs and then leave it for a while to harden off, which ordinarily I would do in the studio. But I'm going to just take this out straight away so that I can kind of stand it up.
Do you have a definite, we've got another question, do you have a definite design for each of the crowns, or do they evolve?
They definitely evolve, definitely. I mean, I do a lot of drawing in my sketchbook, and I usually have an idea, you know, there's a starting point or something that I'm aiming for. So like this one, usually the crowns are very sort of upright and very straight-sided. And I sort of wanted to start making something with a bit more form, so you get a stronger sense that it's kind of containing. So that sort of is my starting point, and I'll make sort of several bodies, several sort of arms, several bases, and the idea will evolve from there. But sometimes I have a fixed idea that I'm aiming for, and other times, but more often than not, that will evolve, and that will evolve right through the process of making. And firing and post firing. That might involve kind of luster firings, transfer firings, multiple stoneware firings, and things will just evolve and change over time. So I might have one idea, but again, it's about flexibility, you know, because I'm making this completely for myself. You know, that's my main motivation, is just to enjoy and make things that kind of, as I say, have a meaning, have something, have a permanence. I kind of don't feel that I've got the responsibility that there needs to be an outcome that is very defined. And I kind of thrive, I enjoy that. That's what keeps me engaged with it, you know, with the whole process. It's
really coming together.
So yeah, so I would start to go about sort of starting to adorn this and putting more pieces on, more balls, but this would be, you know, the average crown like this I'd probably work on. I warn you, if you are sticking with me, I would work on this for several weeks. I don't know how long you've got.
Yeah, I just have to tell everyone this isn't a live process.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. See, really, if I was organised, I'd have the Blue Peter moment. I'd have one. Here's one I made earlier.
See,
Maybe you could show us the different one that's finished at the end. I think you missed it at the beginning.
Okay, I've got the gold one at the back. I'll put a few more of these onto this arm. But yeah, I think it just, yeah, it goes back to sort of just sitting as a kid, just getting lost in process.
Yeah, when that one. When you were in the early years of your career, Rich, did you have a part-time job to support yourself and your craft? And how did you manage to balance the two?
So, that's a good question. So when I came out of uni, I guess I was quite proactive at uni. I kind of got out and about and met a lot of people. When I was in my sort of second year at uni, I went and did a bit of work for Selborne Pottery for Rob Goldsmith over at Selborne. I remember one year he was going away somewhere. I think he was on holiday. I borrowed my mother-in-law's estate car, and I put all of his stand on my roof and then went off and did Hatfield for him, which, when I think back, was incredibly trusting of him. Equally a massive learning curve for me. But, you know, I think I was sort of quite immersed in the field already, and sort of that was my second year. So I kind of got to know Andy and Di, who were running sort of Art in Clay at the time. You know, they've been like parents to me since, really. I got to know a lot of other makers, and then I started working for the show for Art in Clay. So that was like a foot in the door, because Andy and Di used to run a system where if you worked for the show, the following year you could have a reduced rate stand, and you'd still sort of work on the periphery of the show as well. And since I've taken over Art in Clay Farnham from Andy and Di, organising it, you know, we run a similar thing, because I think it's quite difficult to get onto that first rung of the ladder. But for me, it was just, you know, I didn't go out and into another job. I was teaching evening classes, so I did a bit of teaching. I was selling my own work here and there. I was doing kind of summer events. Myself and a friend, we built a raku kiln, and we went round to literally every church fete, every festival. We just threw loads of bowls and took the raku kiln and bowls out and got people to decorate them and just charged them. It was just like, you know, all sorts of different things. But at the time, you know, I had very little responsibility. I was just, you know, I was renting, and I had no children, no dependents. I was kind of, it was a very cheap lifestyle, fortunately. So I was able to kind of juggle the various ceramics bits that I had going on. And then, you know, in sort of 2005, the tile company came up, and I think had I not been in the situation where I was, you know, where I sort of say carefree, looking back now, it felt very carefree, but, you know, I had no responsibility. So, you know, I probably wouldn't have taken the tile company on had I not been in that situation. But, you know, opportunities have come up and I've just sort of leapt at them, really. But I've tried to kind of focus all of those opportunities in a ceramics direction. And, you know, it's weird. I sort of still feel like I'm at the beginning of my career. You know, I feel the same, although I've had all of these years of sort of making stuff and experience, I don't feel any different about ceramics and what I'm doing than I did when, you know, I first got involved. It just excites me every day. You know, I just enjoy it every day. Even on bad days, you know, so it's kind of an ongoing thing, I think, really. I just kind of have been doing all sorts of different things and just fallen into different opportunities as it's kind of gone along, really. So yeah, it's yeah, I'd say, you know, evening classes are good. You know, if you can get work sort of teaching courses or set up your own courses or get out there and meet people, you know, say raku courses, things like that, festivals. It's good because that network is ever growing. It's all relative. You know, I worked at Sainsbury's while I was a student. I worked at Sainsbury's for 8 years. You know, it paid my way through university, through the ceramics course. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get the same kick out of stacking lard on a shelf as I can from making stuff with clay. But I did my wife there, so I kind of.
Well, there you go. See?
Yeah, and we're still together, so you know, she was doing fine art. Yeah, so yeah, I would say there's definitely value in those sorts of situations if you just need to earn money. And I still to this day say, right, I'm just going to get a job at Sainsbury's and then, you know, make in the evenings, because I don't know whether it feels like the grass is greener on the other side, but it would be lovely to not have to sort of be an employer, run a business, and everything else. But I'm not in any way complaining, because I feel very lucky. You know, I feel very, very fortunate that you know, I can make my living from clay, and all of the activities that I do are kind of either you know, like running the art in clay show. I love that, and like the new people that get involved, the students, the coming together of makers who've been away, you know, who you don't see all year, that then sort of come back and you get to catch up with, and that community. So yeah, I just feel like it's, you know, I feel really fortunate. Yeah.
Okay. Oh God. Okay. Look, we got a question here. Have you dropped anything that's of value, or what has haunted you the most?
Yeah, I should probably touch some wood as I say this, but I've been fairly lucky. I think the most mortified I've been was at university, actually, because you kind of, when you go into the first year at university or in a ceramics degree, you know, the people in the third year are like these gods, you know, they must have it all figured out because they've been there for 3 years, and you know, they're coming out with their identity fully formed. And I remember one of the students in the third year, I was a first year, was loading the kiln with all of their work for their degree show, and they'd made these big flat slabs that were kind of laying across 2 shelves from front to back of the kiln, and she couldn't get the last shelf that was at the back on the top loaded, because you kind of had to layer it layer by layer rather than like front and back as you'd normally do it. And she said, oh, you couldn't just lift this shelf in. And of course I was like, yeah, no worries, yeah, you know, pick up the shelf. And literally as soon as I put it on the props, I could feel that it was going. And I sort of said, I'm really sorry. And I took this top shelf out, and all of the shelves in the back of the kiln just collapsed, and chopped all of her work in half. And I was mortified, you know, and I think that's probably the worst I felt dropping anybody's work, because at the time it felt like I'd destroyed every possibility she had of being a maker longer term, you know, because it was for her degree show. But I think it, you know, it all worked out okay in the end. But yeah, I think fortunately, yeah, on the throwdown, I sort of, particularly, I took extra care. You know, you just kind of, you concentrate. You just, you know, I've been so lucky. I didn't drop anything. I didn't sort of, I wasn't responsible for anything not working. You know, in terms of the potters. Well, they might see it differently. Who knows? But on the whole, I think, you know, I managed to kind of pretty much get through unscathed. But yeah, it was always a worry, but you just had to kind of, you know, give proper thought to how you were going to pick things up, where the best place to place your hands on pieces, you know, how to kind of transfer them from boards to shelves, and yeah, just using all of that sort of knowledge from sort of over the years of sort of handling work and moving it and taking care, but then also doing it quickly so that it, you know, so it met the timing. So, but yeah, I've been fairly lucky. I've destroyed loads of stuff, loads of tiles. Like, you know, I mean, when I first took the pottery on, you know, we had a gas kiln that was it used to hold 1,500 tiles, and it would take me, you know, a week and a half to 2 weeks to make them, to kind of fill the kiln, glaze, load, and I'd regularly kind of just destroy whole batches, you know, because the reduction was wrong, or yeah, and it was, yeah, soul destroying. But you sort of just, it's just mud, you know, it is just mud, and you can make it again. It's as devastating as it is. But the stakes just get higher, you know, the stakes on the throwdown were higher, and some of the commercial projects we get involved with, the stakes become higher, because your sort of livelihood is at stake if it goes wrong. So you just try and mitigate some of the risk. as much as you can. But yeah, I've had loads of moments. I've broken all sorts of things. I mean, I was transferring work from my studio last week to the workshop here, and I hit a pothole, and one of these balls actually came loose and rolled across several pieces of work and destroyed them. But once it's done, it's done. There's not much you can really do. So they will be refashioned into other things, or parts will be reused, and because I kind of stick things on with glaze and repurpose things and add to things, so they will have another life. And if they can't, they'll be thrown in the heap.
So when do you put the ball in, Rich, into the crown?
I was thinking this one would be sort of tilted like this. So I'm thinking of a sort of so I think it's going to be kind of tilted over, and then I'll maybe put some nichrome rods through here up into here, and all of the inside will potentially be lustered, and then I'll have sort of more adornments around the crown. And then I drew a world map that I made into globe gauze. So I cut them out into a flat plan of a globe, and I've made those into digital transfers that fit this ball when it's finished. So this will be sort of a globe, a map of the world.
Amazing.
It's just about holding up, I think. These are, it's a bit on the wobbly side. It could go at any time, but I think it's just about there. But yes, So yeah, and then I don't know where my little man will go, but perhaps sort of somewhere up here.
Yeah, amazing.
Maybe stand him down here.
But
it's the sort of thing that kind of, sort of is ever changing, ever evolving. Yeah.
Brilliant.
There we go.
Amazing. Right.
But yeah, I don't know whether you have any other questions at all, or
any more questions, or
we've got lots of people saying thank you so much. They've been really inspired.
Oh, that's so nice.
Fascinating and informative session. Lots of people having to go because I think there are quite a lot of other events.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got tiles I probably should be making too. But thank you very much for sort of saying so as well. It's quite a bizarre experience, sort of talking to nobody but myself on a monitor. So I appreciate you sticking around and listening. It's very kind.
We've had some amazing feedback, Rich. It's really good, and thank you. It's been brilliant. A really good way to start the weekend. Feeling very inspired. Thank you so much.
I hope the festival goes well.
Hopefully we'll see you in Devon very soon.
Yes, fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely. Wonderful. Well, you take care. Take care, everyone, and have a fab weekend. Enjoy the show. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.